I used to think that boundaries were like selfish. Like if you put
Mhm.
boundaries, it just means that you only care about yourself and there's only you. But it does not come from that place usually. Like I think there's always good intention. It's just you protecting yourself, you protecting your energy, you protecting your spirit. And I had to learn how to put boundaries with families, for instance, or friends, where I had to say no to certain things because they were not aligned with my goals and values. And now
Mhm.
that was okay. At the beginning, I used to feel a bit more guilty about it, but now I'm like, no, I'm okay with this. And I'm not responsible with how people are feeling about my answers. It's not my job to fix that. And so it's something that I really learned with time, but I think it does come with time, especially when you understand things, when you understand that you have different goals and objectives, and you maybe have different interests, different priorities, and you learn that you have to start putting boundaries. And it does not come from a place of like hate, or it does not
Mhm.
come from a place of, you not liking someone. It's just you protecting your energy. And sometimes we are the only people that can protect ourselves.
Yeah. Hello, Melissa Crook here from the Feel Podcast. I've got a new friend here with me today. Urmi Hossain is here with me today, and Urmi has a remarkable story with resources, a book, a podcast, and just conversation that needs to be had more often. And we need to really have it on the front side of conversations and get past all of the stereotypes, stigmas, discomfort, because these are real experiences lived by women throughout the world. Let's talk about them. Let's normalize these conversations. Let's bring them to the forefront and let's support each other in that. And let's get curious. And when you meet somebody new who comes from a background that's different than yours, ask them how you can support them. Don't assume you know. Ask them what they need. Ask them what showing up for them looks like for them. And so that's how I want to lead this conversation off with Urmi. She describes herself as dynamic, determined, and disciplined. Urmi Hossain, welcome to the Feel podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm hoping that the weather is improving for you up in Montreal. We're recording this in June. The last time we spoke, you were still pretty chilly.
Yeah, and now I'm dying of heat and I don't even have the AC working.
Oh no. Oh no. Well, by the time it drops in the fall, you'll probably be back to being chilly again. But I'm so
Probably.
glad to have you with me. Thanks for taking the time to join me in the evening after you already had a full work day. But I want to get started on this is a good place to start. Talk to me about your self care journey, what it has looked like over the years, and what you are learning now it means to take care of yourself well.
I think for me, taking care of myself really means different things, and I think it definitely has evolved through the years. I think um,
Yeah.
I think initially I used to think that taking care is, just going on a spa day, maybe getting a facial, which I'm not saying is wrong, but I think it just, for me, just means other things. It means putting myself first. It means doing the things that I enjoy the most. It means taking care of myself spiritually, emotionally, and physically. It also means
Mm-hmm.
taking care of myself mentally, which I think is very important. And I think one of the things I learned the most is that it's okay to take a rest. It's okay to slow down. I think that's what I got as something that I learned throughout the years when it means taking care of myself.
Yeah, yeah, such a good point. We're going to touch on a little more of that in a minute because you brought up the importance of all the parts of yourself, the mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. They're all connected. And we'll get to that in a minute. But in order to do that, it requires you creating some healthy boundaries around your time to make space for that. Talk to me about your journey with learning that, learning the importance of that, and how to do that because most of us don't understand that initially.
Let me tell you this, when it comes to boundaries, I think I really had to learn it. I want to say probably the hard way because it's not something that I was taught, and it's definitely
Yeah.
something, it's not something that I was it was not something that was really talked about, because there is no such thing as boundaries when you come from a culture that is very collectivistic, and it's very much around it, surrounded by like everything that we do, it has to be in a group, it has to be shared. And I think I learned about boundaries after reading a book and listening to a podcast that was about self
Mhm.
development.
Mhm.
And I used to think that boundaries were like selfish. Like if you put
Mhm.
boundaries, it just means that you only care about yourself and there's only you. But it does not come from that place usually. Like I think there's always good intention. It's just you protecting yourself, you protecting your energy, you protecting your spirit. And I had to learn how to put boundaries with families, for instance, or friends, where I had to say no to certain things because they were not aligned with my goals and values. And
Mhm.
that was okay. At the beginning, I used to feel a bit more guilty about it, but now I'm like, no, I'm okay with this. And I'm not responsible with how people are feeling about my answers. It's not my job to fix that. And so it's something that I really learned with time, but I think it does come with time, especially when you understand things, when you understand that you have different goals and objectives, and you maybe have different interests, different priorities, and you learn that you have to start putting boundaries. And it does not come from a place of like hate, or it does not
Mhm.
come from a place of, you not liking someone. It's just you protecting your energy. And sometimes we are the only people that can protect ourselves.
Yeah, that was so well said. And I think it's that addition, it's that willingness to take on breaking generational habits, breaking generational norms, being willing to speak up and say, I'm noticing this doesn't pattern doesn't seem to be serving the women in our family. And I say that with love. I've chosen to take a route that I feel is honoring and healthy. And I hope that one, you'll follow, and two, you'll understand and respect that. But those could be tricky conversations. These things can go very deep and long, many generations.
That's it. And you have to break those cycles somewhere, because otherwise
Yeah.
they're going to keep continuing doing that. And I think I see that, like I can see a lot more cycle breakers right now, especially my generation and the one going forward. I can see that people really stand up for themselves, and they're
Yeah.
like, we don't like this, we're not going to continue doing this, because then it becomes an unhealthy pattern. That's what I notice. It's unhealthy. It can become toxic. It's toxic for yourself too. So you need to know when to like put the boundaries. But I think what's most important is how to reinforce them, because they
Mhm.
can become fragile. And
Yeah.
if you do not know when to stop or when to reinforce them, then then you have people stepping on those boundaries and you have to start back, which is so much harder. So it you have to be that cycle breaker.
Yeah, I love that cycle breaker. We're going to come back to that in a minute when we get to the unapologetic talking point. But I want to get into, before we do that, the impact of our mental, emotional, physical, spiritual health, how they're all connected. You mentioned when we were talking about self care that you address all of those in your self care practices. It's so important that we do that. When and how, I guess, did you realize that that was necessary?
I think initially I was just focusing more on my physical well-being. I think it was just very much focused on like movement, and I was focused on also on working out. But even that, I was doing it for the wrong reasons. Like I was working out
Mhm.
because I was just like, okay, I need to lose weight. I need to, have six packs and things like that. But now I work out for a different reason. Like I work out because it's good for longevity. It's good for my well-being. And it's because it makes me feel better, feel good. And then
Yeah.
along with that, I also understood, especially after reading all the stories with mental health and how we feel, sadness and so forth, I was like, okay, I also need to do something for my soul. That's how I like to describe it, for my
Mhm.
soul, for my well-being, for my mental well-being. And I started to see things such as journaling as part of my self-care practice. Socializing with people also has been part of my self-care practice. And I just listened to a podcast today where they were saying like it's important to build those social connections because they help with the longevity. And that too, you need those connections, human connections with people, to feel good and to have a long life. And
Yeah.
so I think even that I realized it, pretty late, I would say, like even closer to my like 30s, about the importance of mental health, because again, it's such a taboo topic, and no
Mm-hmm.
one thinks it's like something to deal with. Oh, you're sad. Oh, it's okay. It's just one of those days. But sometimes it's not that. There could be something a lot more profound and more deep, and maybe you need to dig deeper on that. And I realized the importance of really taking care of our mental health much more. Like it's okay to slow down. It's okay to take care. You have to feel good from the inside, because then that it reflects on the outside how you feel.
Yeah, it absolutely does. It all impacts each other, and you hit on so many important things there. But when you were first talking about your why behind the doing it, when we're checking ourselves and our why behind doing things, looking at what is that? Is it coming from a healthy place? Are we doing this for our actual healthy well-being, or are there some other things there that we need to unpack that maybe are coming from societal narratives more versus and cultural narratives versus what's actually healthy for us?
Yeah, and I think for me, the whole like emotional part came right after a period of like burnout at work. And that's when like it just
Mm,
hit the point, and it was like, okay, that's it. Like I actually took a short leave a couple of years ago, because I just couldn't handle the stress at work, and it was really too much. And I asked for a day off, it got refused. And since then I was like, no one is caring about me. And I took a it was like a 6 week off, and that's when I understood a lot more about mindfulness, being fully present. I understood about journaling. I understood why I should be moving my body, and the purpose behind it. Like it's not just because I need to lose weight, not that I need to, but
yeah,
I think there is a I think if you do it for the better intention, you're more willing to do it with passion and joy. Like if, let's say,
yeah,
someone is working out because they want to lose weight, but they don't see any changes, then you're like, okay, I don't see the point of it. But if you're running because you feel freedom and you enjoy it, then that's
hmm,
different. You have a different intention. You are more than willing to do it. And so
yeah.
that was the moment where I really understood like mindfulness and mental health and emotional health and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So good. Thanks so much for sharing that. All right. Supporting yourself and other women in living unapologetically. You really do this. This is really what you believe in. You're very passionate about women and their empowerment and telling our stories. And I think there's two things specifically I'm going to point out, but it's a whole body of work that you do. But you have a book, Discovering Your Identity, a rebirth from interracial struggle, that is talks about this deeply about your story. And you also have a podcast, Stories Beyond Borders, which invites these important conversations because these things impact our ability to exist safely in the world, to be seen, to be known, to be heard, to be understood, to feel free. I'm so thankful that you have created these platforms. You talk about something that I don't think we've talked about enough, and I haven't heard it termed in this way before. But you talked about being a third culture woman.
Yeah.
Explain that, because I think this, to me, this is how you show up unapologetically, and you were inviting other women into these conversations as well.
Yeah, so the tour culture kids or the tour culture women, it's an actual concept. Like it's actually even on Wikipedia, and there is a book about it,
Okay.
and it's about individuals who spent most of their childhood or teenagehood in a country completely different than their parents, and they
Mm,
usually have all these questions within themselves about their cultural identity, like who am I? And they really struggle with that because they are exposed with the culture of the country where they're living. They're also exposed with the culture of their parents, and sometimes you live in a limbo because you're like, I'm not sure what you are, like what I am, what I am, and you feel
yeah.
like you're in between. That's why I often describe it as like being in betweenish, and that's one thing that I
Mm,
really struggled with, because I just really felt like people were just assuming things based on the way I was looking, and I feel like I could not totally agree with them. And third culture kids usually really struggle with this question, like, where are you from? And maybe for some people
mhm.
it's very straightforward. I come from X, Y, and Z. But for third culture kids, it's not really that straightforward because in our head, we're just thinking, is it the country where I was born? Is it the country where I live? Is it the country where I have studied? Is it the country where I am working? Is it the country where my parents are from? It's a lot more complex because you just have so many cultural exposure.
Mm-hmm.
The moment I have actually written my book and self-published it, I actually realized that there is a whole movement and group of people that associate themselves as third culture kids, and it's crazy how big it is. Like you ask them where they're from, and they have one parent from one country, the second parent from another country. They're born in another country, they're raised in a different country, and usually third culture kids also speak many languages, and that's what makes us
Yeah.
unique because we hold many passports and we speak many languages and we
Uh-huh.
got exposure to different cultures. And there is like, I used to think it wasn't a good thing because I really struggled in really learning myself and understanding who I was because especially growing up in Italy where all of my friends were Italian, I like for instance I had many homes.
Mm-hmm.
I was always changing city. We also changed countries at some point, and I would see a lot of my Italian friends who were in the same house since they were born, and me, I have all these memories from different parts of the world. It was really later on where someone made me realize that, oh, it's so good that you have lived in so many places, you have all these like interesting stories, and that's when I started to see that my story is part of my storytelling and that I really should
Mm-hmm.
value it and I should celebrate it, even though maybe sometimes I was maybe craving for a lot more stability and hold to into one place only. But I guess that's part of me. So I'm happy with the outcome, but it was just a lot of work that I had to do. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's so important we bring up these conversations because I think when you're a child and we want to find places to belong, we want to have friends, we want to have things in common. And when we don't have language for that, or the kids that we're playing with on the playground don't understand, their parents haven't had conversations with them because they were just always from there. Their parents didn't even know they needed to have conversations. I think it's such an awakening and opportunity as you're listening right now, people, women out there in the world, if your parents or not, or whoever you are, being mindful of who your kids might be seeing at school each day and how they can be welcoming and how they can be curious and
Hmm.
how they can, find those common grounds on, you love to sing, I love to sing too. You love to run, I love to run too. Those kinds of things um, to help create that sense of home and belonging for people and getting down to that piece instead of these, because it's hard enough for that kid who they might have an accent, they might speak your language in a different way. I mean, there's so many things that you're feeling self-conscious about because kids are also brutally honest sometimes, and they may point out you don't talk the same way as I do, and they just blurt it out because no one's had a conversation with them saying many people talk many different ways and that's good. And so I think just that awareness piece.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that because I think growing up, I was looking for that sense of belonging. It's not because no one made me feel like I belonged, but it was just me searching for that. And
Mm-hmm.
I think often I was trying to assimilate myself more to the Italian side. And I remember I went through this phase where I would like straighten my hair and I started to cut my hair so I would look more Italian. I would even wear like green contact lenses, blue contact lenses,
Oh,
because
wow.
I just felt like my Bengali features were boring. That's how I felt. And I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
I was so stupid to think that, honestly. And it was only later on that I started to accept my features and see myself, as beautiful because I know that at some point I did not like my eye color, but then one of my professors told me you have really nice dark deep eye color, and I was like, oh, I didn't think they were deep, but I kind of like that. And it was only afterwards that I started to realize that I should really appreciate my
Mm,
features, my traits and everything. But it was hard at the beginning because I just wanted to belong to only one group, when in
mm,
reality it was about creating my own group that had a little bit of both of my worlds, like the Bengali side and the Italian side. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you got to give that young girl some grace too in just realizing she was trying to we all go through these seasons where we're trying to find our way. And I think it can be really tricky at times when you're from another country and you've immigrated to this new country. Sometimes some countries are more welcoming than other countries. We know that as a truth. And so you don't want to upset the apple cart. You know your parents have made these decisions for a reason. So I think at all of that, just giving yourself grace as you got to that point of being able to embrace the nuance and beauty of all those things, because I've said it many times on here. I think the power of travel and being able to understand multiple cultures and ways of existing in the world is one of the most important things we can do if we're able to. Not everybody's able to do that, but if we're able to. It creates you're a I think a healthier global citizen. You have a more nuanced and broader understanding of all the different ways you can show up in the world. And it kind of, I think, gets rid of this idea of being a right or wrong way to do things, where there's multiple ways to do things. There's multiple ways to live a life, to make choices each day. There's so and not getting into this kind of siloed of right, wrong, better, worse, good, bad.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. And I think moving, like you said, moving from one place to another, it takes a lot of courage and I think
Mhm.
audacity as well, because you're really giving up everything that you had in your home country for something better. And that's what I also talk about in the podcast and the people that I have. It's some of them, they leave because they don't have a choice. They don't want to leave their home country, but they have to because maybe there is a war going on. There could be so many like political tensions and so forth. And
Mhm.
it's always interesting to see how a lot of them they integrated, but some of them still feel like they're outsiders. Some of them have to learn, but then some of them also manage to find people that are similar to them and they build communities and they celebrate that. And
Yeah.
I also feel like the fact that I also have moved around a lot and now I live in Canada, I feel like I have a lot, like a diverse circle of friends, and I'm able to travel through my friends because
Mm.
maybe in Italy I was just exposed to the Italian culture and that was the only thing I knew. But now living in Canada, I feel like I get to see people from like all these different parts of the world, and
Yeah.
they share their culture, their religion, and then you get to like learn about all of these things that you were not aware of. So I feel like I became a lot more open and
Mm.
welcoming also towards other cultures. So yeah.
Mm. Ooh, I love that. That's so good. Thank you so much for sharing that. Oh, I love that so much. You are particularly in all these things. You're very passionate about women and their empowerment and knowing their worth, knowing their value. You serve on committees and in councils and places that really emulate that. Talk to me about how your values and your why really spoke that into being something that's so important to you.
I think when it comes to serving women, it comes from my own personal experience. I've seen how women are treated in South Asian communities and
Mhm.
cultures. We're always like last in everything. No one gives us enough importance and enough education. And I always say, like in a family, when there is a little girl and a little boy, typically more importance will be given to the boy. Let's make sure that he studies and he becomes successful. And for the girl, who cares? She will get married and her husband will take care of her. And so
Mm,
I saw that inequality,
yeah.
and I didn't like that. And I think when I was a kid, I did not quite understand that because I was just a kid. I thought that's how it is, the reality. But
Mhm.
now being on social media, I can see how it is, and I'm like, okay, we have to change this. And and I think that was like, I read this mantra from Gandhi that says, be the change you want to see in the world. And I told myself that I have to be that change maker, which goes back to the whole concept of being a cycle breaker.
Yeah.
And that's where the whole work with the women's empowerment started. And one of the first places I actually started was through mentoring. and
Mm,
I'm very passionate about mentoring. I used to be a mentor when I was in university, and it was just for like school purposes. But then when I graduated, this whole word mentor kept showing up in my life, and
mm,
I really thought that was a signal from the universe that I was meant to be doing something.
mhm,
And so I was like, who do I mentor in this case? And I told myself, I think I want to mentor more women, and I want to mentor women of South Asian background because we
mhm,
will understand each other better. And if I can teach them from my own experiences and help them to feel empowered, then they can go on and continue this cycle. And
mm,
so I've been mentoring for the past, I think, 5 years, and it's what really brings me a lot of joy. And then I'm very much into like leadership, especially because I work in finance and I can see how it can be very male dominated. So I also joined the second organization called Women in Leadership, and I just love everything about it. Like, I think like we have organized, and I don't know if I told you this when we had the first call, but we had our first in-person event on the 8th of March on
mm.
International Women's Day. And we had a panel session, we had speakers, we had like, I think 60 people, all the women from Montreal, all these women that came from Montreal, and they supported us. And they like seeing that as like concretely, it just made me realize, the power that I have to make a change. And then we had the second event, which was virtual, but it's nice to see the drive and the ambition from these women. And it's nice to see how women are questioning things, like it's
Yeah.
it they maybe we were conditioned to like be the perfect girl and be obedient, but now we question things. And I think it's important to question things, like why are things in this way, and where is this written? And so having this conversation, mentorship, webinars, like it really helps to get things started, and I enjoy so much. I think it makes me feel really alive, and seeing the results, I think it's what gives me the validation that I should be doing the work that I keep doing.
Mm. I love that so much. So much good there. This leads beautifully into living out of your own expectations versus others. When you're a cycle breaker, when you're challenging the status quo, when you're saying, why are we doing this? And the answer, because we've always done it that way, is not a good enough answer. That's not the answer. I want to know why. What is the and what narrative are we living with that may not have ever been true. We were just told to do it, or it's not true now, or it's no longer healthy, or it's
Mhm.
not honoring. I mean, these are the questions that we are required to ask of ourselves if we really want to live in a sense of who we actually are, in a sense of freedom. You've done that, which is living out of your own expectations in a nutshell. At what point do you think you started having that kind of curiosity?
I think I always had it, but I was
Mm.
just afraid of vocalizing it.
Mm,
Yeah. Yeah, because I think I had a lot of I thought that my thoughts were crazy.
mm.
I really thought I was like, I think it's not normal that I'm questioning things. And I had this friend at work. I consider her to be my frientor, which is a combination of like friend and mentor. So
I
she's
like
my
that.
friend.
So good.
And I used to tell her all these things. I'm like, I don't think it's right that this is this way. I don't think that women should be, not stereotype. Like there's so much gender stereotypes. Like, oh yeah, that's the word. Like I would be like, yeah, there's a lot of like inequality, and I would just talk about it to her, but never like on social media or in any other platforms. And
Mhm,
I thought like maybe it's crazy that I'm thinking like that. I really thought it was crazy. But then she was there to validate all of my thoughts, and she
mhm,
was like, it's fair that you think like that. And she also went through some similar experiences. She's from Vietnam, but she's
mm.
married to an Indian man. So she knows a little bit about the
Oh,
struggles
wow.
of like South Asian women go through. And
Sure.
and I remember telling her, like, I have all these ambitions and dreams, but I don't know where to start, and I want to make a change. And I like to think big. So I was like, maybe I should like travel to another country and like be vocal about it. And she was like, you can just start locally.
Mm-hmm.
and talk about these things. But it took me a lot of confidence and comfort to be able to talk about this like freely, because there is always that fear of being judged, that fear of like not being good enough, that fear that maybe you're saying things that makes no sense. But when you see that people resonate with your message, you know that you're doing like the good thing, and you can see that other people share the same feelings. So yeah, so I used to really have those thoughts, but I never talk about it.
Yeah. You hit on something that I think so many women run into across the world. I have heard this time and time again. It's why I do this work, it's why we have these conversations. There are so many societal narratives and cultural narratives and misogynistic and patriarchal narratives that are out there that want us to think there must be something wrong with me. I must be crazy. When actually thousands, millions of us are thinking that too. And it's having the courage to vocalize it where you realize, whoa, I am not alone in this. There's actually so many of us that feel that way. And it's when we can find the courage to speak up and find those other people that we can actually shift things. We can actually pour into. No, we're gonna be disruptors. We're gonna be cycle breakers. We're no longer just gonna live this way because that's the way it's always been done. It's not serving us. There's so much data out there supporting the impact it's having on our mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual health by continuing down these roads and not being willing to speak up and say, no more, no more. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
It's this whole thing that we call imposter syndrome, and I just like attended a webinar last week, and
Mhm.
it's so true. Like it really hits us, and it's the way we're conditioned from a young age, and how we are conditioned to behave, to say things, to the way we present ourselves. Like it has an impact, and you keep thinking that's how you're supposed to be doing and how you're meant to
Yeah.
be. But then when I participate to a lot of these events, like especially like events for women where they have webinars or panel session, like I also do things outside of the work with women in leadership just to see what other people talk about. It
Yeah.
often comes back to this. It really it comes back to this, and there are some of the women that I have met who have different ethnical background. They're like, I want to speak up in a meeting, but then I'm so worried about my English. I'm so worried about my accent, but then I'm not
Mm.
sure if I should say something because then I will be seen differently. And I'm like,
Mm.
no, girl, like that you should be you, and you should speak up if there is something that you do not like. And
Yeah.
it's very very hard to like unlearn that. Very very hard. I'm also guilty of that. And I think
Mhm.
you have to really take like small steps. You have to start somewhere. You really have to start from a smaller scale, and little by little the confidence will be built. I always
Yeah.
say it's through actions that you build confidence. But it's like it doesn't stop. Like it's always like that.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's so glad you start with that little thing. Start in that space that feels safe.
Hmm.
Practice it there. And then bring it into another space that maybe you're not sure about. And over time, you keep building that confidence and you find out pretty quickly the other people that are like, oh, I was just waiting for someone else to speak up. But you also find out pretty quickly who the people are that maybe you need to give different kinds of space to or energy to, or consider where it is they do or don't fit in your life, because there will be those that push back on that. But I find 9 times out of 10, when you speak up, you find like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for saying that. Oh my gosh, thank you for helping me feel welcome in a room. And I'd say this so many times, when you are in a room with someone who you sense wants to speak up, but maybe they're a little nervous, you can see it in their posture, in their facial expressions, in their body language, just in the spirit. Be the person that says, hey, George, I think Urmi has something she can offer us here. Let's give her a moment and allow her to do that. Because so many times, too, and my friends, Dr. Janelle Wells and Dr. Doreen McCauley, I'm actually doing a book club with them right now. It's called Our Invisible Work. I think you would love this. And they talk about speak up even if your voice is shaking. That's the first step.
Yeah.
And you'll be amazed how many people are going to come around you. And also, it's going to give you an idea of where you stand and where you are. But it's by coming together and doing these things that we can actually change systems, change narratives, create safe spaces for us all to exist and know how to invite and help others to exist as well. When you're in a room where you've got more of the power dynamic than someone else, create space for them,
Yeah.
invite them into the conversation, ask how you can support them.
Yeah, and I think from a corporate point of view, there are different ways that you can create a safer space. Like I know that sometimes you are in a bigger group, maybe of 60 people, and that can be really uncomfortable. But I think that if you can break it down into smaller groups, let's say
Mm,
six group of 10, or let's say three groups of 20, like I think people will feel a lot more comfortable speaking up. And that's how you can, get their feedback, how you can improve, maybe address some of the concerns they have. It's creating those spaces. But I feel like sometimes companies are not aware of that because I think they're a lot more performance driven and let's see how much money we can make. I have a lot of things to say about that. I think in that case, you really have to think about the people that are serving in your company and how they're helping you because that's what will drive the success on the long run.
absolutely. People
So,
will run through a brick wall for you if they feel safe, if they feel seen, known, heard, valued. If they don't, you're never going to get their full potential out of them. And you're leaving. This sounds kind of brash, but it's very capitalistic. But the truth of the matter is, you're leaving money on the table. You're
yeah,
leaving opportunity in the table when you don't create safe spaces and tap into all that's possible from all your people.
yeah, and I think even in that case, when when those safe spaces are not created, let's say in a smaller groups, I think it's up to the person like me, for instance, in this case, to take that initiative. To take the
Mm-hmm.
initiative and to actually speak to my superiors about things you want to do, things that should be changed, address concerns, maybe put an idea in their head, indirectly or directly, and don't be afraid of doing that. I know it comes with a lot of experience, but it's like you said, you have to do it. Even if you're scared, you have to do it.
Yeah, because the problem is if nothing changes if we don't speak up. And
Hmm.
and again, I work with college students and I talk to them all the time. I'm like, be very specific about the
Yeah.
questions you ask, about the culture, about the environment, and don't be afraid to walk away from something that doesn't feel safe. If they're not willing to listen, if they're not willing to be part of the conversation, be mindful of that.
I so agree with you. I think I have a very good example because I went to this. Actually, I have two very good examples. I went to this interview many years ago, and it was supposed to be, I think, like an hour interview with two people. But this interview was just so like long. It was never ending. I think we went way over 1 hour,
Oh,
and they kept asking questions to the point that they were like they just wanted to know every single behavior of myself, and that gave me the reason to say no to this job. I think they
mm-hmm.
really wanted me, but I was like a little bit sick and tired at some point. I was like, you don't need to ask that many questions to have an idea of myself. I think even interviews, I think they're supposed to be more like a two-way conversations, but they're never like that. It's more like an interrogation, and that too gives you a sense of how the company's culture is. And I think a lot of the times people choose a job for the wrong reasons. We are always looking for salary and great benefits, but you also have to see those things that are part of your long-term well-being and mental health and things like that. Like it's salary is not just the only thing. You have to see the corporate culture. Will you work well with the team? Are there opportunities for you to like grow? Are there opportunities for you to learn? Like you have to be in a company where you feel safe, recognized, and valued. I think those are very, very important, which helps again with the employee retention. If you're just looking at like how much money I'm gonna make and I don't care about how long the interview is, even though these two people were iffy, that's not aligned with you, because then a month later you're probably gonna quit.
Yeah. Yeah. And trust your instincts on that. Like you trusted yourself. I want to point that out. You trusted yourself on that. You knew, even though I think they're going to want me, I know this is not the place for me. I can sense by this experience how work environment's going to look. No, I love that. That so many times, especially as women, we don't trust ourselves. and we listen to outer voices and outer narratives, and especially when you're, I mean, when you're coming right out of school and you're trying to find that first job, or you've been unemployed for a while, you feel that sense of desperation at times, and that can be really tricky because we do need to make money and put food on the table and pay our rent. Those are all things that are part of our living, and also we have to think of our long-term health and wellness, and not being willing to abandon ourselves and shrink ourselves and make ourselves feel like we're an inconvenience for knowing and that places and spaces may not be healthy for us. All right, so let's get into embracing our layers. You have talked about that really throughout the conversation really well. The ability to embrace all the pieces and parts of your story, where you have lived, where you came from, where your parents came from, how that all interworks together, and seeing it as the strength that it is. Talk to me about that journey, like when you were like, hold on, I mean, because you've touched on it, you've spoke on it throughout, but was there a pivotal point in your life where it's like, I need to switch my thinking on how I'm approaching this?
Yeah, and I very much resonate with the whole like embracing layers. And I do feel like we are an accumulation of different layers where each layer represents our lived experiences, whether they're good or bad, and each one of them has a lesson learned. And I think that's how I see myself. Like
Mhm.
I am all these different pieces, which are bricks, layers to be finally to be that woman that I am today. And
Yeah.
I think that realization, and I don't know if it's something that really happens to women when they're like closer to their 30s, but I really thought that, okay, I need to switch and be that woman that I really wanted to be, like
Mhm.
ambitious, unapologetic and bold. And I surrounded myself with inspiration. Like there were so many women that I look up to, that I aspire to be. And it was at that moment that I was like, I want to be like those people. So why am I not acting
Mhm.
like in any of these things that I want to be? And I think my very first step was really accepting myself from a cultural point of view. And it
Mm.
and it was at that moment that I was able to do the switch and feel confident about who I was and how I want to show up myself authentically. And then
Yeah.
finally, I was able to step into all these projects that I'm doing because I really struggled in accepting myself and probably like
Mhm.
also loving myself for the cultures that I was carrying, like the Italian, the Bengali. And I realized that I didn't really need to like choose either one. It was just embracing them and accepting myself for who
Mhm.
I am and having those two parts in me.
Yeah.
And that when that realization came, I was ready. I knew it, that that was it. That was my time. And that's where there was like a peak in my life with the things that I've been doing and how, I built my personal branding, how I was like out there outside of my comfort zone, how I was able to get on these different projects, how people like came up to me and be like, oh my gosh, I'm here just because I want to meet you. And this happened in a conference. Like that's when I realized the power of transformation, I would say.
Mhm.
But that was the pivotal moment when I finally like learned about myself, my cultural identity, and then I was like, that's it. I'm ready to go and I can show up as my most authentic self. Because I think prior to that, I was more likely like choosing sides or maybe living a dual life without being myself and hiding myself and maybe even shrinking myself because I was
Yeah.
always hiding either one. But it was like, I can't hide myself, my authenticity, my cultural identity is part of my storytelling, and I have to use that as my strength. So that's how I would say that was the pivotal moment.
Mm. So
Mhm.
nuanced. I think that's, I love the nuance and complexity. There's room for it all. We don't have to pick and parse out these pieces. There's room for it all.
Yeah, there is room for everything. And that's what I tell also other women as well. Like those moments where you want to shrink, that's the moment where you have to like rise and bloom,
Mm-hmm.
because that will makes you unique and original and diverse as well.
Yeah.
That's how you want to stand out. And that's the thing that I understood, is that maybe back in the days I just wanted to like hide myself. I didn't want people to notice me, but now I'm like, no, I have to stand out from the crowd.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so that's what I did. Yeah.
I love that so much. Thanks so much for sharing that. And that really goes nicely into living out feel. You really do that. You have found your empowerment. You have embraced your layers. Talk to me about how that has impacted your relationship with yourself as well as your relationship with other people. You talked about a little while ago surrounding yourself with people that you aspired to grow into and replicate, but in your own way. That matters.
It does. And they say you are the average of the five people you spend most of the time with. And I think this is
Yeah.
so true. And you also pick on their habits as well. And that is also so true. It's also spoken about in the book Atomic Habits from James
Mm,
Clear.
yeah.
And that's when I understood the power of the tribe and finding people that are similar to you, because you can
Mhm.
have many friends, but not everyone is like a good friend.
Sure.
And you need to surround yourself with people that really encourage you and support you, and they really want to uplift you and want to see you growing. And I think when you surround yourself with these kind of people, that's when the growth will start.
Yeah.
Because if you are around people who are always bringing you down, who are negative about your ideas, they're like, oh, you're crazy, why you want to do that, that's when you know that that's a no, like you have to cut these people out. And
Yeah.
that goes back to the whole concept of like boundaries and say no to things. And you really have to be careful and wise about the people that you want to surround yourself with, because you really need that positive atmosphere and positive vibe that you get from these people, and you will become like those people. Like there was I don't know where I saw it, but they say if you surround yourself with millionaires, then you will become millionaires. And I think it's because you pick on their habits. And I think
Yeah.
this is true.
Yeah.
I I do think it's true. And when you find people that are similar to you, people who are willing to share, who share your same interests, you will grow together. You will
Hmm.
grow together and you celebrate each other together. And that's what I did. I think initially I was leaning on like wrong people, and I cut them out. And there were people who were just jealous about my professional life, who were jealous about the things I was succeeding instead of being happy for me. And I was like, that's toxicity. Like I don't need someone to bring me down,
Yeah.
because I know that if I'm surrounded with people who are really working hard, I'm going to be there and cheer for them. And I want the same thing for me as well.
Yeah.
And after cutting all these people out, I surrounded myself with inspirational people and people that I really wanted to be like. Uh, there
Mm.
was um, there was this manager who I really look up to, and I saw her as my mentor, even though she wasn't like my mentor, but she was very charismatic, very influential. And I picked some of the traits from her. I was like, okay, how is she able to be, influential? And it's because of the way she presents herself, how she speaks, how she really wants you to grow. And that's when I understood about what it means to be a leader, for instance. And
Mm.
then from other people and friends, I learned about, let's say, how to be a go-getter, or how to be put yourself out there. So I picked something from each person that I have met along the way, and even from a mentorship relationship where maybe I am the mentor, but I do get to learn a lot from my mentees.
Yeah.
And one of my mentees, she's in her 20s. She's so like driven and determined. That's what I learned about how can I be, determined and driven as much as she is. I learned this trait from her. And so I feel like
Hmm.
there's so much learning even from the people that you have around surround with, but you need to be careful about those people, because if you have the wrong people around you, you're not gonna go forward with life. They will always bring you down. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think when you embrace your layers and you find that empowerment and you know your own value. So because you know your own value, you're no willing to you're not going to compromise anymore on who you allow into your space.
Exactly. And you know yourself, you know, you like your layers, you know your values, you know what you represent, what you stand for, and you look for those things. You
Yeah.
look for those things because let's say I value so much authenticity, but if I am with someone who's like doesn't want to be authentic, wanna imitate someone else, that's like a no for me. Like I can't be with these people.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So good. All right. As we wind down here, share with me 5 activities that nourish you.
Okay. The first one is boxing.
I love
Yes.
that.
Yeah, I love boxing. It's so much fun. The second thing that I very much enjoy is learning languages, and I'm currently working on Spanish, and hopefully, I master that language. The third thing is reading. I enjoy
Mm,
reading, whether it's self-development or fiction book. The fourth thing is socializing, but it's not any kind of socializing. I participate to a lot of like I support a lot of like women-led group, and they
mhm,
have events such as journaling event or Pilates events, or maybe they have a latte art workshop, or they have I'm not sure, let's say they have a panel session, or maybe they have a cocktail making session. I participate to those events. I just go on my
mm,
own and I'm openly meeting people, and I'm willing to meet people. Usually it's a group of like women. Usually
mhm,
these organizations are social events are organized by women for women. So I get to
mhm,
like meet people that are similar to me who has the same interest. So I very much enjoy doing that. And
mm,
the fifth thing that I very much enjoy doing is making different pasta recipes. And I just love making pasta, and I feel like that's my happy meal, my comfort meal. So I very much enjoy making pasta.
I love that. So good. Thank you so much for that. 5 words on how you want to feel the next 6 months.
It's very hard, I have to say, because I have all these different words in my head. So I would say continue being ambitious,
Mm,
bold,
mm,
unapologetic,
mm.
original, and go-getter.
Mm, so good. Urmi, tell people where they can find and follow you. And this will also all be on our website, on our resources page at embracinglayers.com.
Yes, and people can connect with me on LinkedIn. It's Urmi Hossain. And if people want to find out more about the work that I do with women in leadership, they can just Google Women in Leadership Foundation Canada, and they can look for the Montreal chapter.
Okay.
And I also have my podcast called Stories Beyond Borders, which is on Spotify and Apple Podcast. And last but not least, I also have my book, which is available on Amazon, and it's called Discovering Your Identity: A Rebirth from Interracial Struggle.
Mm, so good. Ermi, I could talk to you all day. I love how you have how you show up for yourself, how you show up for other women, the way you have connected with who you are and how you celebrate that. And that is such an invitation to others to celebrate themselves as well. Any last thought you'd like to share with our listeners today?
I would say, which is my favorite mantra, and it's be the change you want to see in the world.
Mm, yes. Oh, that's such a beautiful way to wrap this up. Listeners, you heard it here first. Well, not here first, but you heard it here today. Take it with you, run with it. Remember, you are valuable, you are worthy, and you get to choose. Thanks so much for being with myself and Urmi Hossain today here on the Feel Podcast. We'll see you next time. Hello, and thank you so much for being with us today on this episode of the Feel Podcast. If you would like more information on how you can apply these talking points that I share with our guests in each episode to your own life, really utilize this Feel framework, go to embracinglayers.com, fill out our contact form, and let's set up a free 30-minute consultation to talk about how you can start living your most authentic, organic, healthy, feel fueled life. Thanks again for being with us today. We'll be back to you soon with another episode here on the Feel Podcast.